Why do people do what they do? Have you ever seen someone on the news, in the newspaper, or in your own community do something so stupid that you say to yourself, what were they thinking? Now, I want to be clear, we're talking about other people, not you, because I know you would never do anything so silly. But looking at what the topic is here, we're going to talk about the only two reasons that people do what they do, the why, the driving force behind the actions that people take. It doesn't matter if it's in relationships, business, personal life, or anything else you can think of. There's only two reasons that dictate why people do what they do, and here's what they are. It's either to avoid pain or seek pleasure. That's it. If you think of any action that you've ever taken in your life, seen other people do, maybe some famous people like Lindsay Lohan, the only reason is to seek pleasure or avoid pain. That is it. Now, I'm going to give some examples of this real quick. But before I do, I just want to talk about a few other concepts with that. And Alex, welcome back to the podcast.
Great to be back.
So we talked a lot about the mindset piece behind fitness and health, but actions. So this applies directly to health and fitness. Why you work out, why you ate that whole pint of ice cream. It's not a lack of willpower, but you're seeking pleasure, avoiding pain. The pain of, it could be restriction. It could be the pain of, I might not ever see this again. The pleasure of, satisfaction. I want this ice cream. Just looking at one example as it relates to diet and exercise. These concepts can apply to anything. Studying, being on time to things, whether you obey the speed limit, like anything you can think of directs to these two things. What do you think about pain and pleasure? Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, yes.
Yeah. Do you have anything, we were talking before the podcast about some examples from our own lives that we've seen and what drives us to take action with that. But there's a one concept that really creates change. So those are the two reasons why we do things. But change comes from when you hit what's called an emotional threshold. So you're doing things as you do them, the humdrum of the day, but you notice that you have a change, you do different things, or you embark on a totally different trajectory for your life, what you're doing, or your career path. And that comes from what's known as an emotional threshold. What that is hitting a level of pain that you weren't willing to settle for anymore. The moment when pain actually becomes an asset. And in the first podcast with Mindset Mastery, Alex talked about this in his own life, in where he couldn't tolerate it anymore. There was no more settling for what life gave you, or just taking the hand that you're dealt, but taking action because you've had enough pain. That's something that you put into action with your life. Now, it comes down to that feeling, and we've all had it, myself, Alex, and you listening to this or watching. I've had it. Never again. This changes now. And that's maybe a crap relationship you were in. You were living in a place that was very unsafe, or you couldn't deal with the neighbors being loud and obnoxious all the time. So maybe like you put it off for a while, but it just, you literally reached a level of threshold where you couldn't take it anymore. This is it. Maybe if you're working in pharmacy and you work in retail, perhaps, and you couldn't take the hours, the lack of tech help, you just had enough. So you changed careers. You're like, this is it. I've had it. You've reached your threshold to change your career to something that was less painful. This applies to many different areas, but these are just some examples that might resonate with you. The intensity of pleasure, now we talked about action being from pain or pleasure. Looking at pleasure, the intensity of pleasure depends on your perspective, the meaning you associate to the situation. Our lives have been shaped by what we've learned to get pleasure from and what will create pain. Looking at learning through life, we learn tons of things. Personal development, knowledge based on what your career is, pharmacy knowledge of all the billions of drugs that came out yesterday. The most important lesson, however, that you will learn, and that what I will learn and what we learn as humans, is what creates pain and what creates pleasure. What you link pain and pleasure to in your own mind will shape your destiny. Think about that for a minute. Really think about like what actions you have taken, what your current life situation is. Everything that has led you to where you are now came from pain or pleasure. Those two simple concepts. Emotional association in your nervous system, a gut level neuroassociation to actions and feelings, is what put those actions into play. If we link massive pain to any behavior or emotional pattern, we will avoid indulging in it at all costs. We can use this understanding to harness the power that pain can have and pleasure to change anything that we want in our lives. So if you've ever tried to embark on a health journey, trying to lose weight, trying to gain muscle, whatever that is, these concepts of pain and pleasure can be put into practice so that you seek pleasure through the weight loss, wherever the goal is, and avoid the pain of the current situation. Because if you're looking to make a change, chances are you're not satisfied, you're not getting pleasure from what your current situation is. So you can literally use these laws to shape any behavior change that you're looking to do. Now, coming back to simpler terms, Alex was sharing a story, actually back in high school, was it? Regarding he got in a little fist fight.
Yeah, that was when I was like in elementary school.
Elementary school, okay. Back
That was
to
like
basics.
it's like 8 years old or something. And talking about pain, pleasure. So I got into a small fight with a bigger guy, right? He's a lot stronger than me. I couldn't fight him. So I lost the fight, and I wasn't like hurt or anything. It just lost it. So what happened is when I went home, that whole day I did all like push up all day, and because in my mind I was saying like, wow, being weak is so frustrating, and
created a lot of pain.
Yeah, creates a lot of pain, and it's kind of like
literally because then you lose the fight and you get more pain.
That's right. And then all the push-ups, and then that kind of motivates me to get stronger, not just like physically, but like all around, to be a stronger person. And I that day I kind of like make a promise to myself, when I get strong, I will never use my power to abuse it on other people. And that's how like trying to live away from pain, and then the pleasure of being my best self, being powerful, so nobody can mess around with me. That's my story.
That's awesome, man. Looking at clients that I work with as a nutrition consultant, a lot of times they'll come to me and they've hit their threshold. They'll say, I've tried these diets, I've tried these things. I refuse to live at this weight any longer. And I said, well, tell me about that. Well, I stepped on the scale or I looked in the mirror and I just was not happy. I went on a 3-mile run. I am not active, I don't work out, but I just had enough. So I went on a 3-mile run. That pain, that emotional threshold led them to take massive action immediately. Now, again, you can't change your whole body in a day, but that immediate action of I need to do something right now. They have reached that emotional threshold, and I hear that a lot from people that are looking to make that change. Looking at going scholarly with Pharmacy World, I love learning, but I am not a genius from any means. It's all studying and putting in the time. It's not. I have a couple friends that are photographic memory, so they can look at something and then they have a test and they're like, oh, the answer is on page 47, slide 6. Crazy people. Not me, dude. Like I gotta study hard and like I gotta wrestle with it and read it and note take like 8 times in order to get it to stick and this and that. So looking back to undergrad before pharmacy school, organic chemistry. Now I know if you're listening and you were in pharmacy school, I'm sorry if that brought back nightmares. It did for me too, but I'm going to talk about it real quick because we're talking about pain. So right on point with the topic. So organic chemistry, I was warned about it before I got into the course in undergrad. And I was warned, it sucks, it's hard, blah, 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 like all the bad stuff. So I went in knowing that. So, I studied and did what I thought was required. And I took the test. And I thought, it wasn't as good as I thought, maybe like a B- or a C. And that was from studying. I get my results back and it was like a D-. And I what? Like, I was like, no way. Like, this will not happen again. It created pain. Literally created pain.
You feel like defeated?
Yes, I felt defeated, like I failed myself, and I hated that feeling. I was in pain. So I wanted to do whatever I could to avoid it. So what did I do? I studied more because at that time I thought more is better. So I doubled in my study time. Like, oh, I'm not studying enough. Like clearly that's the problem. So I studied more. That was after the first test before the second. So I studied more. Took notes, read them a second time, a third time, and I went and took the test again. And now I just got a D. But it was like 2 points above what I got last time. Like, this is unacceptable. Like, this is ridiculous. I doubled my study time. I took notes. I ran out of 2 highlighters. I went through like 3 pens. I needed to get a new notebook. Like, I put all this time in. And this is ridiculous. I've had it. That is it. I had hit emotional threshold of pain. I refused to have that happen again. So I took massive action. I went to University of Pittsburgh. They had an excellent resource center for students. So I went, I got a tutor because clearly what I was doing was not working. So I needed to change my strategy. I needed to change my approach. So I changed my approach. I made it a priority. So I went and got tutoring. I went even further. I went to the bookstore and I bought a book literally called Organic Chemistry for Dummies. Like, I didn't care. Like, I was doing all massive action. I was going to make it happen. So I got a tutor, I put more time in, I was taking notes, I was changing my strategy, I did all these things because I refused to be in that state of pain, getting that letter back that created that pain of, you failed or whatever message I had sent to myself at that time. And what happened was...
So score.
My score went up. It was not an A. It was not an A. But it was not a D, so...
Oh, good.
There's a saying in pharmacy school, C's get degrees. This was pre-pharmacy school, but I had dramatically improved from my first and second attempts because I was in so much pain that I took massive action to change that. I didn't know what that was. I just had to take some sort of action, and in all forms. So that's literally what happened. Coming from a nerd point of view, from using this concept of pain versus pleasure. But that's just one reason. So looking at that, and there's another distinction that I do want to make, is they both are the driving force for every action, pain versus pleasure. But pain is a stronger driver of action than pleasure is. Let me paint out like a real simple example. Money. Okay. Let's just think about this for a moment. $10,000. Just imagine $10,000. Close your eyes for a moment. Just imagine $10,000 cash. What would you do to get that? Okay, just think. So that's pleasure. You're getting money. $10,000. What would you do to get that? Just think about what you would do, what actions you would take, what work you would do, job, hours that you would put in to make it. Okay? That's the pleasure side. Now let's think about pain. What would you do if you just got a notification from your bank that someone just stole $10,000 from you? Imagine that reaction. Like, literally close your eyes and imagine that happens. You just get notified that someone stole $10,000. Some of you are thinking, I don't even have $10,000 right now. I've got student loans. Okay, you're $10,000 in the hole. Imagine that level of pain. Do you feel a stronger driving force to take action than you did about getting creative on how to make $10,000? I bet you did, because pain is a stronger driving force than pleasure. Now, that's not to say that you should surround yourself in pain, but life happens and we're put in painful situations that sometimes we can't control. But what we can control is how we perceive those, the actions that we take, and the focus that we put on in order to what actions we do with that situation that we're faced with. It's not the circumstance. It's not what hand you're dealt. It's how you interpret it, what you do with the hand that you're dealt. So when life hands you lemons, you can make lemonade, or you can make grapefruit juice and sit back and watch as the world wonders how you did it. I just pulled that out.
That's a cool quote.
You like that? I just made that. So just perspective, it really comes down to what you do with what you have. Pain can be miserable, but it can also be a really awesome asset to drive you to get creative and take that massive action. This is a concept that really you can apply to anything that you do. Like I said, in relationships, business, personal development, or anything. Alex, I know you had mentioned the story from a long time ago, but are there any circumstances that you can think of in your present life or in your recent past that these have applied to with pain or pleasure, either or?
Absolutely. So the moment I drop out of college, and I know that I want to pursue my dream and help people, but I never know how.
Mm.
So there is a really dark time where I just don't know. I don't know what to do. I feel lost. I feel I am not making a difference in this world. I am not taking the right action. I'm just sitting there wasting my time. And that like couple of like month or weeks, and I was just feeling so frustrated. To a time, and then I think the time my parents they traveled they visited China, so it's just me at home, right?
Mm.
And I was just so frustrated, and I was like, I was like asking myself why again, like why this is me, like I almost fell back to the victim mentality again.
Mm.
And at that night, I was like telling myself, I will do anything to get out that state. I'll do anything. I was just like talking to the God, the universe, and myself, anything. So that after that day, I take so much action. Like I'm become so motivated because I don't want to be that place again. Be a place of being lost, frustrated all the time, and almost being back to being a victim. That feels horrible for me. And after that, I think leads to the Dale Carnegie stuff, and now, so pain is like really such a powerful driving force. It's like kind of like we touch a hot stove one time. Only take one time. One time, yeah.
That's so good. So, yeah, the first time you touched a hot stove, you probably can't even remember when, but you just know, like, you don't do that again. Do not touch it because you know what happens. So it really is good for memory too.
Is this a card full or something?
Card full? Oh, we're talking too long. What's that?
Okay, let me delete something. I don't know where it cut off. We didn't cut off the best part.
Oh,
the ABCD.
So, guys, that's really the driving force for everything that we do. It comes down to two things: pain or pleasure. Pain can be a stronger driving force. It's not something that we enjoy, it's not something that we look forward to, but just know that if you are in a painful state, it can be one of the most powerful assets that you have to change your situation, change your life around. It all comes down to what you do with the hand that you're dealt. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is another episode of the Mindset Mastery segment of the Fit Pharmacist Healthcare Podcast. Be great and dispense your full potential.